What if I told you that by the end of 2025, millions of businesses could be shutting down at record rates, and your savings could be worth far less than they are today? Sounds extreme, right? But the warning signs are everywhere, and most people have no idea what's coming. Inflation is already out of control. Basic necessities cost 30 to 50% more than just a few years ago. Mortgage rates are skyrocketing, pushing thousands of homeowners to the brink of foreclosure. And let's not forget the national debt crisis. It's spiraling so fast that even top economists are worried the UK could be heading for a financial disaster bigger than 2008. But here's the real question: are you at risk? Will this economic meltdown wipe out your savings, kill your job, push you into financial struggle? In the next few minutes, we'll uncover the 10 biggest reasons why the UK economy is on the verge of collapse, and, most importantly, how you can prepare before it's too late. Stay till the end, because trust me, you're going to need this information. Number 1. Skyrocketing inflation. Imagine walking into a supermarket today and seeing the same groceries you bought last year now cost 30 to 50% more. Sounds insane, right? But that's exactly what's happening. Inflation in the UK has spiraled out of control, and no one seems to know when it will stop. Let's break this down. Why is inflation so dangerous? Well, when prices rise but wages stay the same, your money loses its value. What you could afford comfortably last year is suddenly out of reach. Energy bills, upper, rent, upper, food, through the roof. Yet salaries, barely moving. This means millions of people are struggling to cover even basic expenses, let alone save. And here's the scariest part: this isn't accidental. The UK government and the Bank of England printed massive amounts of money during the pandemic, flooding the system with cash. And now, they're scrambling to fix their mistake. Interest rates have been hiked repeatedly, making mortgages, loans, and credit cards more expensive than ever. If you think inflation is just a temporary problem, think again. Prices rarely go down. Once things get expensive, they tend to stay that way. So while some experts promise inflation will cool down, the damage is already done. Your money will never have the same buying power again. And the question is, how much worse will it get? Will we see a return of 1970s-style hyperinflation, where people's life savings got wiped out? Or will things somehow stabilize? The truth is, no one knows. But what we do know is that this is just the beginning. Because inflation is only one piece of the puzzle. Number 2. The housing market bubble. If you thought the 2008 financial crisis was bad, what's happening in the UK housing market right now might be even worse. For years, house prices have been skyrocketing, making it almost impossible for first-time buyers to afford a home. But here's the real problem: it's all built on a bubble. And bubbles always burst. Right now, interest rates are at their highest levels in over a decade. That means millions of homeowners who took out cheap mortgages when rates were low are now facing monthly payments they can no longer afford. Some are seeing their repayments double or even triple, forcing them to sell at a loss or risk foreclosure. But it gets worse. Landlords are offloading properties because buy-to-let mortgages are becoming unprofitable. This means more properties flooding the market, causing prices to drop sharply. And when people realize their homes are worth less than what they paid, panic selling starts even further. And let's not forget about renters. With landlords struggling, rents are rising at record speeds, making life even harder for those who can't afford to buy. So what does this mean for you? Will house prices collapse completely? Will renters face even worse conditions? Or will the government step in before things spiral out of control? Let me know in the comments, how has the housing crisis affected you? And if you want to stay ahead of this financial meltdown, hit that subscribe button now, because things are only going to get more intense from here. Number 3. Mass layoffs and job market instability. You wake up, grab your coffee, check your emails, and there it is. We regret to inform you that due to economic conditions, your position has been made redundant. Just like that, your job gone. Sounds extreme. Every single day. It's happening. From tech giants to retail chains, banks to startups, layoffs are sweeping across industries like a slow-moving tsunami. Companies that were thriving just a year ago are now cutting staff in the thousands. And the worst part? This is only the beginning. The problem is simple. Businesses can't afford to keep people employed. Consumer spending is down, debts are up, and companies are desperate to survive. So what do? Slash jobs, automate roles, outsource work to cheaper markets. And for those still employed, it's no better. Wage freezes, longer hours, and zero job security, it's the new normal. People are stuck in a cycle of working harder for less, terrified they're next on the chopping block. Economists warn that if the downturn continues, the UK could see unemployment levels early 90s. Think about that. Entire industries shrinking, thousands struggling to find work, and no safety net in sight. So the real question isn't, will there be layoffs? That's already happening. The real question is, who's next? Number 4, the UK's exploding national debt. Let's talk about something that nobody wants to think about, but everyone should. The UK is drowning in debt, and not the kind you can pay off with a few budget cuts. We're talking about a mountain of borrowing so massive that it's now one of the biggest economic threats facing the country. As of now, the UK's national debt is over £2.6 trillion. That's more than 100% of the country's entire economic output. And the government? They're still borrowing billions every single month. Here's the problem. Debt isn't free. The more the government has to pay back in interest. And guess where that money comes from? Higher taxes, spending cuts, and, you guessed it, you. Think about it. Where does the government get money? From taxpayers. And when they need more money to cover their debts, they take more from you. Higher income taxes, national insurance, council tax, fuel duty, they'll squeeze every penny they can. And if you think this won't affect you directly, think again. Public services will suffer, less funding for the NHS, schools and infrastructure. State pensions? At risk. If the government runs out of cash, they'll delay or reduce payments. Cost of living crisis? Even worse. More taxes mean people have even less money to spend, driving the economy deeper into recession. So what's the solution? Nobody knows. The government is stuck between two bad choices: borrow more and risk a full-blown economic collapse, or start slashing public services and raising taxes, making life harder for millions. Either way, someone has to pay. And history tells us it's never the people at the top. But debt isn't the only crisis we're facing. What happens when the thing we rely on the most, energy, becomes unaffordable? Number 5. The energy crisis. You've seen it. Everyone has. Electricity bills that used to be manageable have doubled, sometimes even tripled. Gas prices are eating away at people's savings, and businesses are shutting down simply because they can't afford to keep the lights on. And yet, no one seems to have a real solution. For years, the UK has been heavily dependent on imported energy, from Europe, from Russia, from wherever it was cheapest. But now, global shortages, political instability, and supply chain disruptions have sent energy prices soaring, and the government has little control over it. You might be thinking, but prices will come down eventually, right? Here's the harsh truth. They probably won't. Even if energy prices stabilize, the infrastructure costs, increased demand, and global uncertainty mean that the days of cheap energy are likely gone forever. The government has stepped in with subsidies, but those are temporary. And who do you think pays for those subsidies in the long run? Taxpayers. Meanwhile, businesses are collapsing under the weight of these costs. Restaurants, shops, factories, many simply can't operate profitably anymore. And when businesses shut down, jobs disappear. What does this mean for you? Household budgets will keep getting tighter, businesses will close, leading to job losses. Energy rationing might become a real possibility. And if that wasn't bad enough, there's an even bigger issue at play. The small businesses that keep the UK running are on the edge of collapse. Number 6. Small businesses are collapsing. Walk down any high street in the UK and you'll see the same thing. Empty shops, for rent signs, and struggling businesses barely holding on. And here's the brutal truth. It's only going to get worse. Small businesses are the backbone of the UK economy, making up over 99% of all businesses and employing more than 16 million people. But right now, they're getting absolutely crushed. Why? High costs. Skyrocketing energy bills, insane rent prices and rising wages are squeezing profits dry. Consumer spending. People are cutting back on everything, eating out, shopping, entertainment, because they simply can't afford it. Higher borrowing costs. Many small businesses survive on loans, but with interest rates through the roof, taking on debt is no longer an option. And when small businesses fail, the entire economy suffers. More job losses. When businesses shut down, millions lose their income. Less competition. Big corporations take over, leading to higher prices and fewer choices. Communities suffer. Once vibrant towns and cities become ghost towns, filled with boarded-up shops and abandoned storefronts. And here's the scariest part. Most small businesses don't survive recessions. The last time the UK faced an economic crisis like this, thousands of businesses disappeared overnight. If things continue the way they are, we could see a mass extinction event for small businesses that changes the economy forever. But if you think big businesses are safe, think again. Because even political instability is making this crisis worse. Number 7. Political uncertainty. What's worse than an economy on the brink of collapse? A government that can't decide how to fix it. In the last few years, the UK has gone through multiple prime ministers, countless policy changes, and a level of political instability that's left investors, businesses, and everyday people completely on edge. One moment, the government promises tax cuts. The next, they're hiking rates and introducing emergency measures to stop the economy from falling apart. One day, they pledge support for struggling households. The next, they're slashing budgets and warning that tough decisions need to be made. The problem? Markets hate uncertainty. Businesses don't know whether to invest. Homeowners don't know if interest rates will rise again or finally stabilize. International investors, who are crucial to keeping the UK's economy afloat, are losing confidence. And when confidence is gone, money follows. That's why we've seen the pound fluctuate wildly, why foreign investments are drying up, and why major corporations are moving their money and their jobs out of the UK. And it's not just about money. Political uncertainty affects every aspect of life. Public services are in chaos, with NHS workers, rail employees, and teachers striking in record numbers. New policies are proposed, then scrapped, then rewritten, leaving businesses and citizens completely confused about what the future holds. Even Brexit, supposed to be done and dusted, is still causing trade disruptions and economic fallout, making it harder for British businesses to stay competitive. The worst part? Governments around the world face economic struggles, but the UK's instability is making everything worse. When leadership changes every few months and policies are constantly being rewritten, how can anyone trust that the right decisions will be made? The harsh reality is that political uncertainty is driving economic instability, and unless something changes, things will only get worse. But if you think the government's failure is the biggest risk to your money, think again. Because next, we're diving into something even scarier. The banking system itself. Are your savings actually safe? Let's find out. Number 8. The banking crisis. If you think your money is safe in the bank, think again. What if I told you that the very institutions where you trust your hard-earned cash could be on the verge of collapse? For the past few months, there's been growing concern about the stability of the UK's biggest banks. While most people's savings are safe, there's a hidden crisis brewing beneath the surface. It's not just about the occasional high-profile bank failure. We're talking about a system-wide collapse in trust. In recent months, many banks have struggled to maintain liquidity, meaning they simply don't have enough cash on hand to meet the demands of their customers. If enough people were to suddenly decide to withdraw their savings, these banks would be in serious trouble. They'd run out of money, and the consequences could be catastrophic for the economy. And it's not just about physical cash. With digital banking, contactless payments, and a global shift towards online transactions, the very way we think about money has changed. Cyber attacks and digital fraud are becoming more common, leaving your account vulnerable to thieves. What happens if your bank is suddenly locked out of your account or shuts its doors overnight? Be able to access your savings, much less transfer money or pay bills. But it gets even scarier. Banks are over-leveraged, meaning they've borrowed far more than they can afford to repay. Many are invested in risky assets, and if the market takes another dive, they could face insolvency. The last time this happened? 2008. We all remember how that turned out. If enough banks start to fail, the entire financial system could collapse. So what does this mean for you? Your savings could be at risk. Your access to funds could be cut off, and in a worst-case scenario, the banking system could collapse, leaving millions of people without access to their money. This crisis might seem far off, but the cracks are already appearing, and it could all come crashing down when you least expect it. Now that we've covered let's look at the bigger picture. What happens when the global economy catches a cold and the UK catches pneumonia? Number 9. The global recession factor. If you think the UK's economic crisis is bad, wait until you see what's happening around the world. Recessions don't happen in isolation. When one major economy struggles, it creates a domino effect that impacts everyone, and the UK is dangerously exposed. The global economy is slowing down, and the warning signs are everywhere. The US is battling inflation, China's property market is collapsing, and Europe is teetering on the edge of a full-blown downturn. When the world's biggest economies start to weaken, the UK is one of the first to feel the pain. Here's why. The UK relies heavily on international trade, foreign investment, and global supply chains. But right now, trade barriers, energy shortages, and rising costs are making it harder than ever for British businesses to compete. Exports are dropping, imports are getting more expensive, and global investors, they're pulling their money out of the UK, looking for safer markets elsewhere. And it's not just about trade. The UK's financial system is deeply connected to the global banking network. If banks in Europe or the US start to fail, the impact will ripple through the UK instantly. We saw this in 2008 when the collapse of US banks triggered a worldwide recession. And the UK was one of the hardest hit countries. The worst part? There's no quick fix. Governments worldwide are trying to slow down inflation without sending their economies into a deeper crisis. But it's a delicate balancing act. If the US Federal Reserve keeps raising interest rates, it could make borrowing even more expensive for UK businesses and homeowners. If China's economy crashes, it could send shockwaves through global markets, and the economy wouldn't stand a chance. This isn't just an isolated crisis. It's a global storm that's about to hit Britain hard. The question isn't if the UK will be affected, it's how bad it will get. And speaking of economic damage, let's talk about one of the biggest warning signs of a collapsing economy: when people stop spending money altogether. Number 10. The collapse of consumer confidence. Here's something most people don't think about. An economy doesn't collapse because money disappears. It collapses because people stop spending it. And right now, that's exactly what's happening. When consumers lose confidence in the economy, they stop spending. It's a survival instinct. People fear job losses, rising costs, and financial instability. So they cut back on everything. They delay big purchases, avoid unnecessary expenses, and hoard whatever money. Sounds smart, right? The problem is, when millions of people do this at the same time, it creates a downward spiral. Here's how it works. When people stop spending, businesses make less money. When businesses make less money, they cut jobs. When people lose jobs, they spend even less. It's a vicious cycle that can send an economy into a full-blown recession. Or worse, a depression. We're already seeing this happen. Retail stores are closing, restaurants are struggling, and even major corporations are reporting declining revenues. Small businesses, which rely on regular consumer spending, are shutting down at alarming rates. And this isn't just about luxuries. Even essential sectors like healthcare, housing, and education are feeling the impact as people try to cut costs wherever they can. And let's not forget the psychological factor. When people feel uncertain about the future, they panic. Even those who still have jobs and savings are too scared to spend if they can afford it. Fear takes over logic. Governments try to fix this by lowering interest rates, offering stimulus packages, or cutting taxes. But right now, the UK doesn't have many options left. With inflation already high and debt spiraling out of control, printing more money would only make things worse. So the big question is, how bad will this get? Will consumer confidence recover, or are we heading toward a period of extreme financial hardship? One thing is certain, the UK economy is standing on the edge of a cliff. The only question is, will it fall? The UK economy is on shaky ground, and the warning signs are impossible to ignore. The big question is, what do you think? Will things get better, or are we heading for something far worse? Drop a comment below. I read every single one. This video valuable. Support us by hitting that subscribe button. It's just one click, but it helps us keep making these deep dive videos for you. And if you want to see how we got here, watch our last video. It'll give you even more insight into this crisis. Thanks for watching and stay prepared.